Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Taking a look at this Florida Gators offense heading into 2023 and really just taking some time to address a narrative that you see in the national media where I think they're just kind of missing the boat on. And that is that this Florida Gators offense can't be good in 2023 because they lose a top 5 NFL draft pick in Anthony Richardson. Now, you look at it on paper, you look at it on the surface level, I could see why you're saying, hey, the Florida Gators, who struggled in 2022, just lost one of the best players to the NFL draft, a top 5 pick. No way that offense is going to be good in 2023. I think they're kind of missing the boat. We're going to dive into it. Now, before that, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's truly been a blast talking this Florida Gators team during the offseason. Whether we're talking the recruiting trail, whether we're talking about this team heading into 2023, the support from you guys truly has been a lot. I mean, a lot of Go Gators in the comment section, a lot of you guys checking us out. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on what I think might be a hot take. And again, that's why I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion on it. And that is, this Florida Gators offense in 2023 is going to be better without Anthony Richardson than it was in 2022. And this is not me getting up here and dragging Anthony Richardson. It's more just fighting back against this narrative that Billy Napier is a bad coach because he had a top 5 NFL draft pick and couldn't have an elite offense and struggled in 2022. Anthony Richardson was drafted to the NFL as a top 5 pick, not because he was an elite quarterback for the Florida Gators in 2022. We're going to dive into some of those numbers, but he was drafted. If anyone really follows the NFL draft, he was drafted because of those projectable traits. I mean, truly one of the more special athletes we've seen at the quarterback spot. And if he does put it together, which he flashed it at Florida in 2022, but didn't really put it together on a consistent basis. But if he does put it together at the NFL level, you're going to see a generationally talented quarterback in Anthony Richardson. Now, getting back to what Anthony Richardson did in 2022, you dive into the numbers, and I don't think I need to tell many Florida fans. I guess this is more for like national fans who are so low on this Florida team heading into 2023. Anthony Richardson, although flashed some absolute brilliance. So you can look back on some of those plays, the fake throw 360 against Utah, like truly one of the more fun players to watch at the college football level. He was not that great on the field on a consistent basis, right? You take a look at some of the advanced stats, 53% completion percentage for Anthony Richardson. That's 117th nationally. Now, what's even more concerning is that they weren't even really throwing the ball down the field. I mean, that was a 7.3 yards per pass offense, which is 70th nationally. You combine those two things, right? Or low completion percentage, and you're also not really pushing the ball down the field. Those are some concerning numbers. And you dive even more into it in the red zone. This is where this team really struggled, specifically throwing the football. I mean, this Florida Gators offense ran the football well all year behind a very good offensive line. You got a really, really good running back stable coming back in Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne, but they were 117th nationally in scoring in the red zone. And why do you think that is? I think a lot of it gets to Anthony Richardson being just a little bit of a project for the Florida Gators in terms of when you get into the red zone and those throwing windows get a little bit tighter, you got to start throwing with anticipation a little bit more. Anthony Richardson was much more of a I see it, then I throw it guy. But when you get into the red zone, you have to throw guys open, throw with some anticipation. I think Anthony Richardson really struggled with that. So I don't know if this is catching any Florida Gator fans, by surprise. But I guess I'm just kind of addressing on the surface level. It seems like, okay, they lose an NFL quarterback who went top 5 in the NFL draft. There's no way this offense can be better in 2023 without it. Now you look at what they have coming back, and let's get into Graham Mertz, the transfer quarterback from Wisconsin, and why I'm kind of excited about how he fits in. For one, let's start with the disrespect that Graham Mertz has gotten, right? I get, and as a Big Ten fan, as a Michigan fan, many of you know, I've seen a lot of Graham Mertz. I know it wasn't always pretty at Wisconsin. I'm not going to sit up here and say Graham Mertz is going to win the Heisman Trophy and lead Florida to an SEC championship game, but I'm saying he could operate this Florida Gators offense better than what we saw Anthony Richardson operate in 2022, and a large part has to do with the consistency. Now, I want to go back to Graham Mertz coming out of high school. He was a top 100 nationally ranked dude, the highest Wisconsin quarterback they've ever signed to that program. The talent is there. I don't think Wisconsin put him in a very good spot to be successful, to be a dynamic quarterback. That's a very bland offense that runs a lot of power. They run the football. They don't really push the ball vertically down the field. Graham Mertz coming into this Florida Gators offense, I think can provide a little bit more consistency. And everything you're reading out of spring and especially early fall camp practices, Graham Mertz looks really good. And you even have Max Brown, who apparently is looking really good, and Jack Miller sitting there at the quarterback 3 spot. It sounds like it's Graham Mertz's offense. He's going to be the quarterback 1. And I think there's a lot of reasons for Florida fans to be excited about this offense potentially taking steps from a consistency standpoint, right? You're going to be able to run the ball at a high level, right? Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, they're still in the backfield. This offensive line, although it's lost some guys to the NFL draft, to the transfer portal, still will be a pretty good offensive line. You have some big dogs up front. I don't really question Florida's ability to run the football. Now, can you make teams fear you through the air? That's kind of where it comes down to. And I want to start with Graham Mertz. And I think him bringing just a little bit more consistency to this offense. I love the splash plays like anyone else does who's a college football fan. Watching Anthony Richardson do truly special stuff, it's exciting. That being said, it's really hard to consistently, especially in the SEC, consistently put up points on the board week in, week out, drive in, drive out when you're missing throws that need to be made at the SEC level. And you could say a lot of those things for Anthony Richardson. Take example, it's 2nd and 7. You had a 3-yard run on first down. You have a 6-yard dig route and you missed the throw. That needs to be completed and you put it in the dirt or you sail it over the wide receiver's head, which we saw Anthony Richardson do too much of. If you start hitting those passes a little bit more and start setting yourself up in 3rd and manageable as opposed to 3rd and long, that's going to help this offense in a massive way. And you look at the 3rd down percentage, they were not good on 3rd downs last year. And I think a large part of it was they were not staying on schedule because they were missing the throws that you needed to make. Now, Graham Mertz, although is not, again, I'm not saying he's Bryce Young. I'm not saying he's going to come in and be a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback. But I wouldn't even say he doesn't have the talent Anthony Richardson does, but what he might have is the consistency that Anthony Richardson lacked. And so you combine that with a wide receiving group that I think we talked about the run game, good offensive line. They're going to be able to run the football with some really good running backs. This pass catcher group, I think, might be the key. I mean, we had Justin Shorter, Xavier Henderson, and if you guys have been listening to me for the last 18 months, you know how high I was on Justin Shorter being that breakout dude, and it never really happened. Xavier Henderson, kind of the same thing. He's gone to Cincinnati. Justin Shorter, I believe, was a day 3 pick in the NFL draft to my Buffalo Bills. Now, I think these pass catchers coming up, and a lot of Florida Gator fans have been kind of upset at me because I haven't been giving guys like Caleb Douglas and Marcus Burke enough credit, right? We have Ricky Pearsall coming back as your leading receiver. Marcus Burke and Caleb Douglas, very capable receivers too, and I don't mean to disrespect them. That being said, what you're hearing from the true freshman wide receivers and Andy Jean, Aiden Mazzell, and Eugene Wilson, that's where I think you're going to get a lot of production that a lot of people don't know of. Right, again, on the surface level, you lose Anthony Richardson, you lose 2 wide receivers who were starting for you last year, you lose a bunch of guys on the offensive line. A lot of the people who cover this sport, and this is not necessarily knock on them, it's really hard to keep up with the recruiting. And if you don't keep up with the recruiting, you might not know about the talent that is being infused in this wide receiver room heading into the 2023 season. So guys like Andy Jean, Aiden Mazzell, Eugene Wilson, combined with some more consistency at that quarterback position, I think this Florida Gators offense turns a lot of heads in 2023. Now, getting to the expectations, this is something we've talked about a lot in the summer. I'm not saying the Florida Gators are going to go out and win an SEC title. That being said, the win total at 5.5 games, I think they're going to win 6+ games, and that's what you want for this Florida team. You're going to have a very young team. You're going to have a lot of these guys who are going to play significant snaps in 2023 coming back in 2024. This season, for me, if you're a Florida fan, which I'm a pseudo Florida fan at this point, we've talked a ton of Florida Gators football, I think is a building block for what can come in the 2024 and 2025 season. Billy Napier is choosing to build this thing kind of the right way. And when you're building it the right way, not just through the transfer portal, it's going to take a little bit more time because you got to get those high school classes in. You got to get those guys developed and ready to play SEC football. It's going to be a little bit of a slower process. I really hope that Florida fans and the Florida administration are going to take their time and let Billy Napier do what he's trying to do. He's not only changing this roster around, but he's changing the culture around from when Dan Mullen was there. And that takes a couple seasons. But when you take a look at what this team can do in 2023, 6, 7 wins, I would take that any day of the week. And I think they certainly can do that in the 2023 season. But when you look at 2024, 2025, the recruiting class that's coming in, that's when you get excited. So for this Florida team heading into 2023, it's not doomsday, right? And we kind of said, okay, don't expect an SEC title, but don't expect this Florida team to be bottom of the SEC either. They're going to be competitive. I think they arguably can be better on both sides of the ball than what you saw in 2022. And if you can make that happen, you can win 6, 7, maybe even 8 games if it really comes together. And you take a look at what this team can be in 2024, that's where you get excited. But make no mistake about it, this offense has a chance to be better than it was in 2022 with Graham Mertz at the quarterback spot because he's going to be a consistent passer that's going to be able to operate this offense at a little bit more of a consistent level. Again, appreciate you guys. Had to hop on, give my thoughts because I've been reading too much about the Florida Gators and how bad they're going to be. They're going to shock some people in 2023. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys as usual. And if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk to you guys later.